Bro, are you nervous? We can.
I am. All right, let's do it. Are you ready? Hold on, wait. Hi, and welcome to another edition of Digital by Design. Today, I'm actually joined by a really good friend of mine, Jav Mazloumian. He's a dental technician from like way back when. I mean, we've known each other now for a long time. I want to thank you for joining us today because, like I said, I've been calling you and telling you you're going to come down, and I got you because we just had a course.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. You got a great setup here, brother. You're doing it. Good to be here.
Hey, thank you. No, I mean, when you look around, you can't even tell that it's a dental laboratory anymore. Huh?
Yes.
I told you, man. I go bigger.
You're the
go
next
home.
Joe Rogan of the dental industry, brother.
That's
I
what they
know
say.
what you're doing. Yeah.
At least I'm going to try. We'll see what happens.
I'm confident in you, brother.
You know what it is? You know what it is like I said, like we've been doing it for such a long time, you and I, working behind the bench and stuff like that. And like I said, we go way back, and the first time that I met you, we're talking, I don't even know, maybe 17, 18 years ago?
17, 18.
Yeah, something like that. I know it was...
I know you sold me my unit 15 years ago, but I knew you before that, so about 17, 18 years.
Yes. But yeah, I went down to your lab. I remember one day they told me there's a lab guy out there. He wants to jump into the digital world, and so I went down there and I met you for the first time, which was really cool because, your laboratory was on the second floor. So we walked up, we had to carry all that equipment upstairs. Then, you treated us with the restaurant that you own downstairs. Yeah. And so how, when we think back at that and where we are today, what do you think about, even that same day, that day that you sort of decided to jump into the digital world?
Well, I'm going to tell you how it happened. And, 2000, I believe it was 2010, the crash happened,
Yeah.
So all my accounts were like working with Medi-Cal. So we were booming, like doing 70, 80 units a day, 10 people working. So we were fine. So all of a sudden that crash happened and all my accounts started losing business. Mm-hmm. So me and Susie were talking. We're like, okay, we're losing business. What do? We focus on the restaurant, or do we continue with the lab? What's going to happen? And then one day I got a phone call from my buddy August de Oliveira.
Yep.
So
good dude.
So he was like at that point where the business was already down. Mm-hmm. So he was a good portion of my business providing income. So I said, Jack, listen, I'm getting into digital dentistry and I need you to go digital. Otherwise I'm going to be forced to
call Frankie.
Yeah, call Frankie. Call Frankie. Yeah, or
I got you.
Unfortunately, I want to go digital. So I hung up the phone and I told Susie, listen, we got to make a decision. Either we're going digital and we're revamping the whole lab and we're starting from scratch, or we're shutting the doors and we're focusing on the cafe that we have.
Yeah.
So that's how that happened. So I did some math, the amount of work he was giving us and how much it would cost me to get all that equipment. Because remember, back then, to buy all that in-lab thing, it was like $120,000, something like that. It was like, it's a big step. Talking 2000.
It was expensive.
Yeah, it was expensive. Yeah, and at a point where it's crashed. We're losing like 70% of our business, and we don't know what's going to happen. So we said, what, the heck with it. We got to do what we got to do. So that's when we made the phone call to Serona. And then you showed up, my friend.
Yeah, I changed.
And remember how what I said. I said, listen. All I need you to do is just make me a crown. If the crown fits on that die, I'm buying the equipment.
I remember that. Yeah. You know how many times I had to do that, though? Every time I walked into a lab, the first thing that they said to me was, if you make it fit, I will buy it. And I go, okay, well, let's do it. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, and the reason why I did that? Because before that, what was the square unit called? The compact unit?
Yeah, the compact.
Yeah, because remember I used to go with August, at the Patterson and show the doctors how to stain and glaze. So he would mill the crowns. So that unit didn't provide, crowns that would fit perfectly. And I was like, oh, shit, is this what digital dentistry is all about? Like, the crowns don't even fit. Why am I going to spend, time making it fit? I can just, wax up and press and I'm done done with it.
Yeah.
So that was my main concern about, you know, going digital. Are the crowns going to fit, or do I have to sit there and make it fit and make it work, you know?
Yeah, but in reality, we understood it back then, right? Back then, it wasn't so much the mills. We would always sit there and say, "Oh, it's the mills," but it was also the preps and the doctors understanding that if they prepped a certain way, we would not be able to make something fit with the mill, you know, because when we pressed it, you know, we looked at the prep, we did all these different things, but when it came like digitally or directly from an actual scan or a doctor's, you know, prep. It was hard for us, right? And that's where you had to learn the milling strategy.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And if you didn't know the milling strategies, but I had so many people that came in. They would always tell me, well, if you can prove to me that this can fit. But again, you know, I always had that conversation with all my friends and all my lab buddies and stuff. We would look and say, I'll make it fit, but we're going to have a real conversation about how good that prep is, right?
Yeah, the prep, the parameters, everything, yeah.
Because
it was a learning curve, man.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. And even going back to what you just said, I remember, you know, my parents, the same thing. You know, it was like 2006, 2007, 2008. Well, that whole couple years, it was kind of crazy because that's the same reason why we got into digital.
Yeah.
You know, my parents, you know, they only knew one thing, you know, like you. Like I remember walking into the laboratory, PFMs were like the thing. I mean, are you even doing PFMs these days?
No, we haven't been doing PFMs for the past, I think, 7 years now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
It's I don't know. It's in order for me to bring back PFMs, I would have to hire a good ceramist, and today I think it's really hard to find a good qualified technician.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to go through all that casting and, you know, investing, divesting. I don't want to go.
Who wants to go backwards?
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. You know, like I said, we put in our days. I started. I don't know how young you were, but I started when I was like 16 years old.
I started 14.
Nice. Yeah. So we started young with when my parents were from Cuba. You came here already. Were you already a dental tech?
No. I came here 8 years old. We immigrated here in 1978.
Nice.
So I was 8 or 9 years old. And then I dropped out of high school because I needed to make money. To support.
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. So I got into one of my cousins was a dentist. So he had a lab that he was working with. So he said, listen, you know, if you're not going to go to school, then I'm going to talk to this lab and you're going to go work over there. So I said, okay. So 14 years old, I started working for that lab. Swept floors for 2 years.
Yeah.
Started out as the denture guy. So I would do all the boil outs and everything except for setting up teeth. So I would do all the dirty work. So, and then I started getting into crown and bridge, and it picked up from there. It's like, it's been
14,
41 years, bro, 42 years almost.
Okay, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but yes, I started at 16.
I didn't tell you how old I am. I just said how many years.
Well, you just threw some years in it. You started 14, do the math.
Yeah, I know.
but at the end, it was the same thing with me. My parents, you know, they came from Cuba. They were dental technicians. And the next thing I know, I turned 16 years old. They give me the keys to a car and they say, well, it's time to work. And I was like, what? So I had to go into the laboratory. You know, mine was a little different. I would do, you know, a couple deliveries and stuff like that. But, you know, they put me in the model department and they put me, you know, cutting, you know, metal, gold, and all that good stuff. You know, with that old, I forgot what the handpiece was, where it had the
Wells handpiece. I still have it. I'm using it till today.
Oh my God, that thing would actually, you know, all of a sudden deform, and then you saw that thing kind of like start warping, and then it would snap and smack you. The belt would smack you across the face.
So in my lab, all the benches have the regular handpieces. I'm working with the Wells handpiece.
Oh my God!
Till this day.
No. I'm still scared of that thing.
It's the best handpiece.
It smacked me a couple times. Wow.
No other handpiece has the torque of that handpiece.
It's true. I agree with you 100%. I get it, but we got to move forward, bro.
I'm not leaving that handpiece, bro. No matter what. Taking it with me.
But you know what the thing is? The thing is like I said, I remember I went to your lab and yes, you had that restaurant, but when I walked in, I didn't know. Yeah. And it was our buddy, you know, Jeff Youngerman. Yeah. You heard that Jeff Youngerman's son now, he just got signed, he got drafted by the Phillies.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, he's playing baseball now. He's playing he's up there now.
He's a really good guy.
Yeah. No, Jeff Youngerman was the man. He's the first one that sold us, me and you. He sold us our first system. But the thing was that what I remember the most was that after we were done, you basically said, hey, let's go downstairs. And I didn't even know you had that restaurant downstairs. Yeah. And that food was was impeccable.
Yeah.
That food was amazing. And then I said to you, as we kind of get to know each other, then you started doing courses at the laboratory, at our lab,
Yeah.
for our education center and stuff. And I always thought that was cool because you would always bring the breakfast burritos.
Yeah.
Every single time we would have a course, you would just show up. Those things were amazing. What happened to the restaurant?
Well, we transferred it to my older son, so he took over.
Oh, nice.
He's grown it I don't know, maybe 5 times.
Wow.
He expanded. He leased the next door space, so he kind of expanded the room. He's doing really great. I mean, it's something that the younger generation understands. Instagram marketing and stuff like that. It's hard for me and Susie to do the lab and do the cafe at the same time. It's not possible. There's so much you can do. So he took over and he's doing excellent, bro. He's awesome. He's booming it right now. He's looking to expand or even expand, like lease the next door space, kind of expand more. But I'm glad it worked out like that, because it would have been a shame to kind of close the doors and say, oh, we don't have business, and just lock the doors and get away from that. He's booming right now, bro. Like Saturdays and Sundays, you go there's like an hour wait line.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go down there.
Whenever you come down,
because you don't bring those burritos no more. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's because right now
he won't
cafes no, cafes in Hollywood. I'm in Glendale, bro.
I got you.
Before it was like walk down the steps. Right now I have to drive to Hollywood and then pick us up and then go to
So what made you move? Because I remember you moved to that new the laboratory that you have today, which is really sick, because you have that one section where you can have education there. You can have a bunch of different things. Level 3.
Yeah. So my main thing was I wanted to have an education center, not just to make like money, profit and stuff. Like, educate my employees. Do stuff for companies. I like learning and teaching.
Yeah.
So my main thing was I wanted to have an education center. So every day I would drive on San Fernando. That was my road to work. And then one day I saw a for lease sign. So I said, let me call and see, how much this is. 2,000 square feet. I was like, beautiful, because I was at a 1,000 square foot space. And I asked the price, and he was asking like, I think it was $1.10 a square foot.
Wow.
And I was paying like almost that same price for 1,000 square feet at the lab. And I had to drive like 10 miles going that way and then coming back. So, and this place is like 0.7 miles away from my house. So it's like a walking distance. So I said, listen, this is perfect. I called the guy, and it just happened, bro. I believe whatever is meant to happen, it happens.
Yeah.
And it did. So I built the education center, but I quickly found out that having an education center and running a lab are two different businesses.
Yeah. Two different businesses.
It's not even close to what I was expecting. I was like, oh, okay, I want to post a course. Everybody's going to jump in. It doesn't work like that.
No.
And it took me time to find that out. So I kind of stopped pursuing it. We started doing things together. So, I'm happy with the current situation. If it ever happens that, we start doing courses at my place, it's there.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, it's fine. I'll probably end up putting benches and adding more work.
Continue to grow.
Yeah, continue to grow.
Yeah,
So,
I mean I can't tell you enough. I mean we started educating. I think it was like 2012 is when we started educating. We started educating in lab, because we had a good partnership with Serona at the time, and everybody that purchased would actually come through my education. It would come through Jay Black's education, Mike Suris's and stuff like that. And so as things progress, things change and stuff. But no, it's really interesting. You said something right now that even for me, we talk about this all the time, right? Work on your business, not in your business. And so I always tell you, hey, at what point, are you just gonna, because again, the quality of work that you give your clients, is really high end, right? And in reality, I had to make that decision on my end too, because my father had the same mentality. My father, he owned his laboratory. I owned a denture and a removable lab, and then he owned the Crown and Bridge lab. But at the end, all I ever saw was, what we were bred to do is to make sure that we work the hours that we work. If we have to sleep there, we sleep there. I actually just found a picture of my dad that my mom took. She sent it to me. She said, hey, start putting it in some of your presentation, where my dad's like laid out like this, and you see a furnace behind him. He's like this, and he's sleeping. And it's kind of crazy because that's what we were bred to do. Like, that's what I was bred to do. But, nobody kind of told us along the way, well, there's business behind it, right? There's, 100%. you gotta learn this, you gotta learn that. Where it's funny because I find it interesting that you said, the education part, it's kind of business, it's this, it's that. But when it comes to the laboratory, it's the same thing, right? Yeah. You have to learn how to be able to, say, just to kind of use your own words, right? Your words were, well, I just thought I was going to create an education center, and then people were just, I want to put a course out there, boom. So it's kind of the same mentality that we have, right? We have a quality-minded, let's say laboratories out there that say, okay, I'm going to put that out there. But then they get to a certain point where they can never grow past that because they're stuck in that little world of, I got to do X, I got to do Z, I got to do everything. And if I don't do it, then things kind of, go south.
So let me tell you something really weird. So in the beginning, when I started the lab, I was 20 years old. I opened the lab. I shut it down. I couldn't, I was young. I was partying every week. Yeah. So but I was making like 10 units a week. It was way enough money for me at a 20-year-old, back in 92, 93. Yeah. Anyway, so my whole goal was I wanted to become an artist, so I loved to do what I was doing. So I bought a bunch of books, read books, and then I took a master ceramist course. Oh, so yeah, so I
knew that.
I know you know. So anyway,
not too many people know that.
So I studied for 9 months, and then my whole thing was I was gonna produce like these layered crowns and do the best. And there's a lot of technicians out there right now. Like, I see their work. Bro, it's crazy what they do.
It's amazing.
It's like it's really artistry. People from the outside that don't know the industry don't know how much effort and how much work goes into that type of work. Yeah. So that was my whole thing. So I had a lab set up in my bedroom of my house. So I would finish my work at the lab, and then I would take my books, and then go home and go into my private lab, and then open the books, and then started, doing different layering techniques, stuff like that, because that's what I wanted to do. Yeah. Then I would come back to the lab, and I would get an anterior crown, or let's say a 2-unit case, and I would sit there, layer, put mamelons and all that shit, and send it out to the doctor, and then I would get a phone call. What is this blue line in there? What is that, white thing in there? What is that, what is it? I'm like, that's mamelons. That's, no. We don't, just make it match to the Vita shade guide. That's it. We don't want to do anything. So little by little, I started noticing that, you have to have the right clientele for that type of work.
It's 100% true. Yeah.
You can't just sit there and take your average dentist off the street and start doing crazy work like that. One, it doesn't make sense money-wise. You have to get paid for it. Yeah.
And the time that you put into it.
The time you put
into
it.
One crown, couple days. Yeah. I remember those days.
Yeah. So, and the second thing, you have to have people to appreciate that, you know? So at the same time, I had a group of dentists that I helped kind of, gave directions of, they were graduating dental school. So they made wax ups, and I showed them how to wax it up, castings. I checked everything. They graduated all at the same time. So it was like 7 or 8 dentists, Armenian dentists. Yeah. And they all opened up offices at the same time. So within a year, I went from like having time to sit there and layer and do all that work to like, okay, how am I going to get these units out? We're doing like 60, 70, 80 units a day. It's like crazy. I'm sleeping at the lab. I have a couch. I'm not going home. Yeah. So in a way,
the lab life
and the current situation kind of forced me to kind of like not go that route, down that path. Yeah. But again, till this day, I still, like watch, people layer, and I love to do that. It's just, we're getting older. I have 2 grandkids. So it's like, where do I stop? Like sometimes I tell my wife, like, I would love for the lab to run on its own. Yep. Me to make my own room, my own private room, take a 6-unit case for a couple of days and just work on that case. I don't want to, and let the lab run. So in a way, you learn all that, but not everybody gets to do what they,
because at the end it's a business.
It's a business.
It's a business. And that's where it's really hard because, I'll say it again, even with my parents, my dad had that same mentality, which he bred it, on me. And then the next thing I know, every single case, you have to do a certain thing. But as you said, you get crazy busy. Once you get crazy busy, the next thing you start trying to figure out is, well, if I add this layer of porcelain, then I do this, and I can actually do it maybe in 2 or 3 bakes.
Yeah,
and oh my God. And then you start cutting corners, and then you start kind of trying to figure it out. Because at the end, like you said, you need to get paid a certain amount.
Yeah.
I mean, if you break it down and you say, oh, but we were having a story a little while ago. When we were in the course today, we were talking to the students there, and all of a sudden somebody said, well, where's all the dental technician, schools these days, and why don't you do that, and teach, how to do, stacking porcelain? We kind of both looked at each other. We were like, we want to really go down that path? Because if we're going to basically teach, not to say I haven't stacked porcelain in, I would say almost 9 years, maybe more or something like that. I don't even remember. It was this laboratory here. We started in 2010, and the laboratory that I stacked porcelain, let's say last, was even before that, because then we started milling. It was all about staining and glazing. It was all about this and that. But when we start looking at that path today, right? How many people, every time we do a course, how many people ask us, well, I want to learn how to do X, Y, and Z. But then in reality, is that a lost art? I mean, it's not a lost art because there's still a lot of technicians out there that are doing it. But the problem is that is it that reality of like the E-Myth book, right? Is it a hobby? Does it become a hobby? Does it become, a business? Does it become just a job for yourself? If you can get that client that's willing to give you, $600, $700, $800,000, then you can basically, do it. But it's hard. I mean, like I said, you look at it today with everything that is CAD CAM, with everything that's happening chairside, with everything that's happening even in the laboratory, with everything that's happening when we educate. We're educating. I mean, look, you've been educating with me for over 10 years now, right? Yeah. You've always come down. We've done courses at your place, but at the end, what have you noticed? What I've noticed is, and especially in our education, not to say that that's happening all over the place, but what we've noticed is that you're not seeing dental technicians come to these courses as much. Yeah. Because now the course, I mean, we just had, last month we had a course with almost 15 people there. All of them were dental assistants that were learning how to stain and glaze, that were learning how to create a denture, a partial, a this or a that. And we had one dental technician there, one today. I mean, for this weekend's course, right? This weekend's course was all about printing and all about, creating a denture and how to put pink on all on X. How many technicians were in there? None. Not one. And, all of them were RDAs and one doctor.
And you know what the funny thing is, and I really noticed this, like if I go back 5 years, I would see like all these master, like ceramist guys giving out courses. Yeah. Composite courses, like really crazy courses.
That's a lost art right there.
This past 2 years, I haven't seen one advertisement. Maybe I'm not looking.
Yeah, maybe we're not. I mean, we don't know everything. Right?
I think again, I might be wrong, and I think it's becoming a niche where you're like a top technician. If you look at the guys that do the really crazy work, and trust me, there are guys out there that's like,
we know a lot of them.
I mean, I know how to layer it, but I even look at their work and I'm like my hat's off to these guys.
Blows you away.
It's like maybe 5% or 10% of the market. Yeah. And they do that. They love that.
I like how you call it the 5 and the 10%, right? I call it the 1%ers, right? Because I call it the 1%ers only because I've had, perfect example is I've had doctors call up the laboratory that are digital. Because again, our laboratory only accepts digital. Yeah. And the reason why I call it the 1%ers is because, it's kind of like that motorcycle, right? The 1%ers. So it's kind of like the same concept. You start thinking about it, and we'll get that phone call from, okay, let me back up a little bit. Just because, I did do the circuits, I was all over the place doing lectures and doing this and that, right? They sometimes would look at me and sort of say, okay, well then, he is a high-end dental technician. In reality, no, hell no. You know what I mean? I know, I've been in the business for a long time. I know how to do ortho. I know how to do, dentures, removables, you name it. I can talk to and just do the whole thing. When it comes down to it, I'm a very well-rounded dental technician. But in reality, what I do love that our industry has gone is the digital path. Sure. So when I would get phone calls, I'll never forget, I get phone calls, all of a sudden, you get that one doctor. Well, I'm so-and-so, and, I'm a mentor here, and I'm a this, and I'm a this, and I'm that. And I'm looking for, a good, CAD CAM, let's say, technician that can give me, 13 layers of stacked porcelain. Okay, well, those two words don't go together. you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that you can't do it. I'm not saying that you can't do it.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
But in reality, for me, what I would just do is I would just tell them, no, hey, listen, I know Jav Vasquez.
Exactly.
Call him up. He will basically do what you need to do. I'm already past that part where I wanted to grow a business. I wanted to grow an education. I wanted to basically, look at digital dentistry and say, hey, there's something here for us, because we lived sleeping on the benches, right? Those years to where we sit today. You come to my lab now and, you see everybody doing it. I have a kid that just came out of school. And basically, I had him go through the courses, and my man's like, he's
killing him.
You saw that when you walked in, and you're like, bro, what the hell is that?
Yeah,
like, he actually made all these shades of pink, and he did that on his own.
Yeah, that means his brain is working.
That means it's going, and so that's where we're at today. We gotta basically look at everything and join it all together, because I don't want to see an industry that I love, that has been, since I was a kid, with my parents and everything, to be honest with you, to be lost because, everybody's kind of giving up and saying, no, I don't want, I'm not going to buy technology, or I'm not going to move forward, or I'm not going to, because it's just too much, or it's already past me. No, because what's happening now is you look at how many laboratories there are and how it's shrunk down, and our industry is still booming. But where's all that work going? Right?
Yeah.
And you see it online and all the complaints and all these different things. But you're a perfect example of when we started this conversation today, you said it perfectly, right? Yeah. I had to make a decision. And if you ask yourself today, was that decision worth it?
It's worth it, and I'll tell you why. From what I learned, whether I studied for 9 months or whether I read all the books, whether I see all these guys, whether I attend their courses, what I did was I combined that knowledge with today's technology and materials. Yeah. And I'm going to give you a perfect example.
I've seen it, bro.
Without me layering 10 or 5 different color porcelains, I can do the same thing, let's say, with the biomic stain. Yeah. Or, like whatever liquid ceramic stains there are. And I can still give it that effect using my knowledge. Yeah. But what I can do now is offer my client, instead of a $400 Emax or a $500 Emax, I can offer a $250 Emax, which is reasonable and still looks good. Yep. So that's the decision I made. So combining my knowledge and what's needed today, and do that. Because to be honest with you, I think that middle class where everybody's doing a crown for $100 or $120 is going away, because now you all of a sudden you see all these milling centers, directly targeting, dentists. Because
now it comes down is it's a DI scan. Hey,
exactly.
I want it.
Exactly. So and there are, not to say anything bad about any milling center, but it's just it is what it is. No. They're offering, milled crowns for $40, $50, or $30. So how do you compete with that as a lab? You can't. The milling center is doing 1,000 units a day. Yeah. You're doing 30, 40 units. How do you compete with that $50 price? Yeah. You don't. So you got to do something different. In your situation, you got the CAD CAM world locked. Yeah. You're doing things that not most technicians are doing. No, I'm being very honest.
No, I got you.
It's not just you're sitting in front of me.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It's just the way it is. So the way I do something different is like, all of my accounts have my cell phone number. I give one-to-one personal attention. I take my knowledge. I give them a good crown with a reasonable price, and that's the way I do it keep my accounts and
Yeah.
try to grow my business to that point. And in the same time, learning from you, going more forward with CAD/CAM stuff like
Yeah.
that. And then I let the guy, just like you said, I let the guys that do the crazy work, no problem. I mean, if I have a account asking me for something like that crazy, I would recommend the people that I know. Say, hey, you know what, this guy does great work. I don't, but this guy does. Yeah.
And it's not that you don't want to.
No,
it's that honestly, we again.
I don't want to go back.
We don't. I don't.
And it's not. I don't want to sound like I'm lazy or.
No.
It's working for me. Whatever I have is working for me, and I might do that when I retire.
Maybe.
And when I say retire, I don't want to retire and stay home and watch TV every day. Retirement for me means taking a 6-unit case and working on it for a week and the lab running on its own.
Exactly, because you know what, that's the transition. That to me is the transition. We were actually outside yesterday. We were talking about this. The transition of being a dental technician, right, or a master ceramist, or whatever we categorize ourselves at, right. In reality, there is that era of our lives, right. Yeah. You asked me outside and you said to me, how do you do it? And I looked at you and I said, well, I was a dental technician at one point in my life.
Right.
Right. I have the knowledge. I can do it. I'll age myself. Right. So I'm 53 years old. I started at 16. Right. Making models, doing crowns, doing all these things. Right. So I did it for many, many moons. When I started to sort of transition into my new what I am. If somebody was to ask me today, well, what are you? Well, I'm a businessman.
Exactly.
That's what I am.
Exactly. Exactly.
What do you own? Well, I own a dental laboratory. I own an education center. I might all of a sudden start owning maybe a couple more, laboratories in the near future. But in reality, that's the point that I tell everybody. At one point, if you want to stay down that route, and I have no problems with that, because my dad would have gone down all the way. My dad till this day walks inside the laboratory, rolls around, and the first thing he does is he grabs something, he looks at it, and he looks at me.
What's this, right?
What is it? What? Because when I was doing this,
yeah. See, that's the thing, and a good I don't remember who it was, but somebody told me a good long time ago, said you can't be a professional artist and a businessman at the same time. You got to pick and choose. Yeah. Those two don't go together, and that's why when you see a lot of these guys that do like really crazy work, it's either a 1-man show or a 2-man show.
No, it's true. 100%.
Or a 3-man show.
And just to be very clear, there's nothing. What I'm saying is there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
if that's
no.
Path,
listen,
if that's the path that we choose. Do we choose it? At the end, you make that. Everybody has to make that decision at one point. My dad had to make that decision. My dad had to. Because like I said, if we look at the two laboratories, right? My family's owned a bunch of laboratories, but at the time, I owned I owned a denture and a removable lab. I mean, I'm sorry, a denture, a partial. We used to do everything that was just removables. Now, my dad, he never wanted to get into that, even though in Cuba, he learned everything. My dad was almost the dentist in Cuba, but of course, not speaking the language, coming to the United States. Next thing you know, what's the next best thing? Dental technician, right? Because he's not going to be able to all of a sudden learn the language and all of a sudden go down
study
to school.
Some more,
And you got to make money. You know what I'm saying? You're coming to the country and you got to go work, period, right? He was working at a Fuji factory. And then the next thing you know, my mom's like, hey, can you help out that guy that has no tooth over there? Yeah. Come into the apartment all the way in the back next to the bathroom, and I'll make you. And this is like in the 50s, right? And so when we look at that, my dad sort of, opened up a laboratory that was just Crown and Bridge. Then I opened up a laboratory that was removables because I kept telling him, Dad, we can go to all these accounts and we can tell them, look, we do removables as well. So it was owned by two individuals, but believe it or not, I owned it. But I worked at my dad's lab, right? Yeah. I worked underneath my dad the whole entire time, but I owned it. And then I hired somebody that was taking care of it. I have Claudia, which she's been with me. Man, I've known her since she was like 20 years old. And now she works at my laboratory and doing digital dentures and all that stuff. But in reality, what's really cool about, this story is that, you look at my dad and it was hard for me to even tell him when we opened up this laboratory here in 2010 for him to even be able to let go. It was hard. And to be honest with you, we were partners here, right? So I said to him, look, I'm going to open up this lab. It's going to be digital. I'm not going to accept any analog. This is the way I'm going to go down. It used to be known all Ceric all the time, right? People used to call me, what do you, oh, this Ceric sucks, whatever. Look, whatever. At the end, I look at it as we were going to go digital, and I'm going to go with the best, in my opinion, the doctors that understood digital the best, which was Ceric. And we've had this conversation many a time. My dad would look at me and go, a machine? A machine is going to, you crazy, this and that. And we would go 2-3 years of having the same exact conversation until one day, my dad had a heart attack sitting at the bench. And then the next thing you know, it's kind of forced upon you. And when it's forced, and the story.
I know a lot of technicians that in the past, and they were saying screw digital, what digital? And now I see them on Facebook and they're digital.
No, it's crazy.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with digital. There's nothing wrong with that. You're an artist. You can still mix.
Exactly.
If you want to do that, you can still do it.
100%.
And again, and being that level of a technician, it's amazing, man. To me, it's every time I think about I walk into the lab, I have a section where I have all my books. I look at those books and I could have been, I could have been. But then again, I'm supporting a family. I'm running the lab.
Exactly.
So it's to a point where I want to get off the bench.
Yeah.
I want to become a business. So let's put it this way. If I had the mentality right now, 20 years ago, I would have been maybe a 40, 50 man lab.
Yeah.
At one point we were at 12 people and my employees were begging me expand, please. Let's get a bigger space. Let's get a bigger, and I didn't listen. I was like, just do your stuff. I would go into the lab and do quality control for 2-3 hours and walk out and go spend time with my kids. I didn't pay attention to the business and slipped away, bro.
Yeah.
But it's
but it's good.
Lesson learned.
It's good. Listen.
Yeah.
Listen. At the end, that has nothing to do with.
For sure.
Each one we all go down our path and we have our beliefs and then we change and then we think and then we go and then things happen. Like I said,
for sure.
When we talk, every single time we talk, we always sit there and say to ourselves, hey, this is what we're going to do next. This is what we're going to do next. And we'll continue to do it and we'll continue to help whoever wants to the help to learn how to do digital and whether it's like I said, like we were having that conversation, whether it's assistants these days or doctors or laboratories or whoever it is, right?
Yeah.
We want to take that to the next level and we were having this conversation today because we want to see how we can continue to do the education together. Like I said, 2 laboratories with 2 different mentalities, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, one goal. I mean, look, at the end, every impression that I get for some reason, I don't understand it how sometimes an impression pops into our we pick up anywhere from 2 to sometimes 3 to 5. I don't even know these days because we have a marketing team now and then we have a sales team and all this stuff. And so when I go inside that room and I ask them, I said, well, how many accounts are we picking up average, per day? We go anywhere from 3 to 5 a day. That's how many accounts come in. Yeah. But you see them sort of seeping in, right? Like the doctor that wants to go digital, but doesn't want to go digital just yet. So I'm going to send you an impression. But I have a scanner, but I'm not using it. So I'm going to send you an impression. Well, all those go to you, right? So we made that deal. We're like, okay, I don't even have a model department, bro. How can we continue to do that, right? Yeah. And so at the end, it's still the same goals. We're still trying to get there. And to be honest, like I said, to leave in a good note, where do you see digital dentistry today?
It's
do you see it being, I guess, the norm?
Listen, I see it where I can't picture me without it.
Yeah.
So like right now we're non-metal. We don't do.
Got rid of PFMs.
No PFM. Yeah. So like 7.
You should open up a laboratory that only does PFMs. Will make a killing because everybody's not doing PFMs.
The problem is employees. Where do you hire employees?
No, and the price.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Price. What do you do with the price? Like it's like I called this several months ago. This technician. One of my doctors told me, I know this technician. She's looking for a job. We called her in, and she was working at a dental office in Beverly Hills for a private dentist. dentist had a laboratory, like a little corner, and she was doing Emaxes for that office. And we got talking. She showed her work. It was like beautiful, like layers and all that. So, what we're used to. And then I go, yeah. So like, what would you charge for something like that? Well, she goes, well, I'm getting paid $700 a unit at the office.
And that's why she's coming to you.
And I'm like, yeah, you better stay at that office because no lab is gonna pay you $700 a unit, no matter how good your work.
I'll give you the keys to my lab.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. She was doing excellent work, but what do you charge for it? What do I charge the dentist?
Yeah.
I understand that dentist is charging $3,000 or $3,500 for a single unit veneer. He's paying $700 per unit. Fine. But what do I charge you? How do I,
So I got to find. So what I got to go do now is go to that doctor and say, hey, I'm going to now she's gone because I just hired her. I'm sorry, but I'm going to charge you $1,000 because I got to pay her $700.
Yeah. No, but even like an average ceramist, like to do a PFM, and I've called a lot of guys in. I even had people that work for me. I still have good relationship with them after that 2010 crash. I everybody went their own separate ways, but till today I still have good contact with them, and 2 of them are working at a very high-end labs as ceramist. So and I if I want to bring them back, I ask them, how much would you charge them? They're like, oh, minimum $40 a unit, bro. just to build up, contour and glaze. Yeah. So it's like $40 a unit, man. Yeah, but then that means I have to charge like 150, 160 for a PFM. Who's gonna pay me that?
No, it's hard, and it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. So
So
where we see it today is that, like you just said, I like how you said
digital dentistry, bro. It's just like an iPhone.
Yeah.
I don't see myself without it, man.
That's good.
We're trying to expand. Right now we have 3 mills, we have 2 printers. We're trying to buy the 3rd printer, maybe another mill.
Yeah.
So I love it, man. I can't do without it. It's like I have my flash drive with me.
Well, now you brought your son in, right?
Yeah, my son. He's
smacking you around a little bit.
Yeah, he's putting me in check, man.
He's making you a business guy.
He's making me a businessman.
That's good to hear.
And he's amazing, bro. It's just we're too much alike. Sometimes we argue, but he's amazing.
No, but that's the same thing.
He has a mentality, and I know he's gonna watch this. I don't want him to get things, but
He's
I can't do it.
I know his past, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, we're trying to get it to a point where we grow the business. Eventually, he runs the place, and I retire.
Yeah, because at the end, that's the goal.
Yeah.
Brother. You know what, man? It is always a pleasure to see you. Well, I'll see you next month because we have another course.
Same here, bro.
But you know what I'm really happy about is that you brought up some things that not too many people know. And I'm really happy about it because I consider you probably one of the best dental technicians in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think you're the man, and I like how humble you are. And again, that's why when we started doing education, I thought that one of the coolest things about you was that you had a level this high. But when you taught everybody that came through our education, they basically were able to use what you taught them the very next day. And that's what makes you, my man. My brother and everything else.
I'm glad that it's been working out for this long time. Looking forward to the future, brother.
We're going to kill it, bro.
We still have a lot to think about, a lot to do.
All right.
I'm looking forward to it, man. Good to have you again. Nice setup.
Yeah.
I wish you all the best, and I know you're going to succeed. So
we're going to have fun. Now let's go to the casinos and
let's go
and have a good time. All right, brother. Hey. It was awesome.
All right.